in just a moment, I'm going to invite our fellows to introduce themselves, tell us a bit about their backgrounds. And then from there, we are going to go into the presentations themselves. So each of our fellows will be making their presentations. And then from there, we will transition into the Q&A portion of the event. Our fellows are all very excited to hear your reflections and may have come with some specific questions that they have that they would like to ask you all. So we're so grateful for your generosity of time and spirit being here at this pivotal stage for our fellows. Alinta, you start with an A. So would you mind kicking off your introduction?
Yeah, hi, hello. My name is Alinta. You'll be able to tell by the accent that I'm from Australia. Please don't hold it against me. I'm from Queensland in Australia, which is even worse. I'm currently located in Norway, which couldn't be much further away from Australia. And I'm here working as a teacher, basically, an academic in a digital culture department. You'll hear more about me and my project when I do my little presentation. But basically, I'm interested in all sorts of technological types of art, and I make lots of different things that are more like interactive games, things that are more like digital poetry. And I'm also very interested lately in the ties between that and the environmental humanities and animal computer interaction. So a lot of the things that I've created recently have been things like, how do you create artwork or games for animals, for instance, in rehabilitation or in zoos? So how do we create things that have this kind of bigger ways of helping the world, ways of helping other species in particular. So that's kind of my area.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Alinta. And Santiago, would you please go next?
Yes. Hello. It's a pleasure being here. My name is Santiago Reyes Villaveces. I'm a Colombian artist. I'm based in Bogota. And currently, during this period of the fellowship, I'm living between Bogota and Cartagena in the Caribbean coast of Colombia. I'm an artist. I work mainly here in Colombia and in different places, well, in Europe and in the States, depending on the projects. I have a degree in sculpture, and I work a lot with installation, site-specific installation, and sound projects that have been recently the focus of my practice. And I'm very interested in the relation between colonial process, climate change, and space exploration. And I explore this theme through different site-specific projects or particular works. And I'm also a teacher at the Universidad del Bosque here in Bogota, where I teach final projects. And this semester, I decided to go back to teach drawing. It made sense. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here and to share with you my project.
Thanks so much, Santiago. And Sean.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Sean Connelly. I'm zooming in from Honolulu, Oahu, Hawaii. Thank you so much for Leonardo-ASU for this opportunity to explore exciting work. I'm an artist, primarily work in sculpture and film, with a background in the built environment, so architecture, land use design, etc. My practice, I consider myself a practitioner of the built environment. Most of my work has to do with some aspect of understanding the history and future of our built environment, specifically through the lens of Hawaii. So calling attention to obscure parts of, or parts of Hawaii history that are obscure to most of the rest of the world, in terms of how our ecology here, our history, and the indigenous knowledge that is accessible here, how much that has to offer the future of our planet. Specifically, I'll get into some of the work specifically, but yeah, being from Hawaii, you could use all the key terms, decolonial work, climate change, but over the years, demilitarization is a big one in Hawaii. But right now, given the conditions, everything, concepts like native futures and indigenous knowledge are very important. Frameworks for understanding the future of our, ability as a species to survive on the world's most isolated landmass. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Sean. All right. Well, now is the time for the presentations to begin. So let's do that same order. Alinta, would you please kick us off?
Yeah, hi. So I have a video to share with you today. I think I'll just share my entire desktop with you. And of course, I will remember, thank you, to click those little buttons. Oh no, it's asking me. Sorry, I'm on a new computer. Your password, and I'll enter that password. Alrighty. Now, could I just ask, can everyone see this video?
Yes.
Or something on their screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can, Alinta.
Hi, my name is Alinta. I'm originally from Australia and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging on unceded Yugambeh land where I grew up. I'm a media artist with a PhD in animal-computer interaction as creative practice. I'm interested in the environment, the welfare of other species, the politics and ethics of helping others, and how these notions can be expressed or even potentially helped through arts practices. And I volunteer to rehabilitate bats. Essentially, I want my works to have relevance amongst a wider, multi-species community. This particular project looks to the potentials of machine learning for creating artistic and poetic interspecies communication devices. Science fiction has long imagined a Babel fish that allows translation of multiple species. Such devices could very well shift entire perceptions, ethics, and understandings. Of course, the communication methods, signals, and umwelt of different species can be complex and unknowable, and many will say impossible to translate or express in a human language. I also fervently believe that humans do already communicate quite effectively with certain species based on our anthropological history, animal behavioral research, or kinship. But the rewards of attempting other ways of understanding others are vast, when that understanding is aimed at care rather than at use. Machine learning in my work relates to the creation of AI models that can learn a series of given audio classifications, tell the difference between them, and for the most part understand the difference between these classifications and other background audio. When applied to animal vocalizations, this means a machine that can learn and categorize the vocalizations that are given to it, hear the differences between them, and choose a text output that it knows is associated with the vocalization it hears, all in real time. It does not do this alone. It does what I train it to do, meaning it is still up to me to make the bioacoustic recordings, classify them correctly, learn everything I can about the species and the meanings or contexts behind their vocalizations, write the translations, and tell the machine which translation fits with which vocalization. This is already possible, as shown through the pilot project of my fellowship, where 7 grey-headed flying fox signals returned poetic translations depending on their behavioral contexts. In other words, what we know flying foxes are doing when they make those vocalizations. This is based on predefined scientific literature mixed with my own long-term work in bat rehabilitation care. For the other species I will be looking at, I'm more reliant on scientific literature performed by others, but I have lived with and around most of these species for my entire life. For the final piece for my fellowship, I'm aiming to expand beyond grey-headed flying foxes and include Australian magpies, butcherbirds, Egyptian fruit bats, noisy minor honeyeaters, and extinct species. The extinct species AI model is more conceptual, as the point is that it will never truly work as intended. Having reflected on the flying fox pilot, I have now designed the overall aesthetic of the work and developed an opening scene and menu system for users to navigate between different species, and I currently have working AI models for the grey-headed flying fox, the butcherbird, and the noisy myna, so I'm almost halfway completed. My project includes 2 species with highly complex combinatory and improvisational vocalizations. As audio machine learning with TensorFlow struggles to account for this complexity, this is quite experimental and has required a very different method when it comes to how translations are written. I test each model by asking it to display a number that corresponds to a trained vocalization, then I play vocalizations to it to see what number it displays. If it displays the correct number, I know it's working. For the more complex species, such as the butcherbird, it will often switch between 2 or 3 numbers in quick succession before settling on one. But I think this is okay, as it shows there are several different pieces of vocalization being weaved together, and I just need to account for this when writing translations. This project is essentially an AI-driven net artwork in that it functions via the web and a mobile phone's microphone, which will make it freely available to the world of smartphone users. Because the device must listen in real time in order to function, this means it should arguably be used in the vicinity of the species in question. This affects the aesthetic of the work. So far, the aesthetic is very text-based, with predominantly dark colors, minimal movement, and no sound, because some of the animals involved are mainly nocturnal. It would need to be visually and audibly non-disturbing when being used near those species, though I am wondering if I need to add auditory interest for the human perceiver and essentially create a different version of the work for an art gallery audience. I have now gathered essentially all the audio data I need from these species, including my own field recordings, some from the Creative Commons, and with the help of bat researchers who have given me bioacoustic data for the Egyptian fruit bat. But I have been learning lots of cool things that I didn't know through my vocalization literature review, such as, did you know, the Australian magpies who spent the most time creating improvised complex songs for their aesthetic qualities alone, or you might say simply for the fun of doing so, are the aunties who support other families but never have chicks of their own. These are the strongest musicians of the Aussie magpie world and have some of the most complex vocalizations on the planet. My project also finds it particularly important to consider the ethical impacts of AI on other species and aims to promote ethical data gathering methods. Last month I gave a hybrid workshop called the Animal Centered AI Jam, which took place at the Animal Computer Interaction ACM conference. The workshop aimed to bring together AI experts, animal ethics experts, and artists and designers to create their own vision of what I'm making for my fellowship, a conceptual use of AI for other species. And we particularly delved into the ethics of using AI with other species and how we could design frameworks for developing AI more carefully. And the outcomes of this have been really helpful in allowing me to think through and develop my own ideas. There are 2 things I'd love help with at this stage. One is I'd love more input from JavaScript experts, as there are some extra additions I'd like to make to my code that I simply don't have the skills for. The other is to chat about the aesthetic and the poetry to get at the heart of what this work will feel like for the user. So far in my journey, I've come to the realization that what is under scrutiny in this project is not just the use of machine learning, but more fundamental questions of translation, ethics, and anthropomorphism. What happens when we take animal communications as data and port them into our own subjective worldviews? There are, of course, also massive technological questions and questions of ethics that this work is bringing up, many of which I hope to delve into further in this fellowship and beyond.
Wonderful job, Alinta. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. I know that already have all kinds of ideas and questions bubbling up, but that is not
Good.
So thank you so much. I want to just have a full round of applause for you on that.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So we'll save, if folks have questions, remember to jot them down so that you'll remember them once the time comes for this. So next up, Santiago, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna share also my screen.
And Santiago, if you are going to be sharing any video content or sound content, a reminder that you might have missed at the beginning was to share with the share sound option.
Yes.
Great.
I have included. Okay, so I will start.
Mangroves are a vital part of the Caribbean coastal ecosystem. They protect against storms, hurricanes, prevent coastal erosion, and purify water. These coastal environments are under threat. As sea level rises, mangroves are disappearing, and the vital flow of oxygen from seawater to mangrove is rapidly decreasing due to temperature fluctuations and changes in ocean currents caused primarily by climate change. Rising temperatures are causing mangrove trees to grow thicker roots that block the flow of seawater, causing the system to suffocate, taking with it critical habitat for a wide range of species and displacing Afro-Colombian fishing communities. As the mangrove disappear, so too the soundscapes vanish. These soundscapes will soon become an acoustic fossil, a haunting reminder of the sounds that were once here. We stand amidst the sound that will soon be lost as the rising water engulfs. Yet there is a temporal quality to these sounds that radically opens up the present to the future of its resonance. They are acoustic fossils, remnants of a world already lost, but they are also acoustic, opening up time to anticipation of its arrival, the arrival of time itself as a sense. As we activated the first prototype of the acoustic fossil project, we were immersed in its sounds. The microphones acted as an extension of our bodies, connecting us to the forest through cables, the piezosensors of the contact microphones and the hydrophones. The prototype induced a novel sense of corporality, initiating an affective connection with the forest, creating a feedback loop of acoustic vibration. The prototype was activated in December 2023 in the communities of La Boquilla in Cartagena and Rincón del Mar in Sucre, in collaboration with the local organizations Mundo Verde and Afroismar, organizations dedicated to ecotourism, restoration, conservation, and recovery of the mangrove ecosystem. Afroismar, a pioneer organization in mangrove reforestation, has developed a distinctive technique that amalgamates ancestral wisdom with contemporary science to replant red and black mangrove flora. Presently, they have cultivated around 70,000 mangrove trees, offering this to international institutions as carbon compensations. Despite their innovative technique, they have received little support from local government and international institutions. The sound of the prototype is generated by a pure data patch running on a BeagleBone embedded microcomputer. This setup uses a sound interface within an open source Linux environment, allowing pure data to run on the BeagleBone in real time. In addition, a set of protocols facilitate interaction with the computer through specifically designed contact microphones. The prototype has two knobs, each with a dual function, one to control the microphone delay effect and the other to activate a chaotic function within the delay effect. The prototype is also equipped with a solar panel for power and is designed to be waterproof to ensure functionality in the humid and challenging environment of the mangrove ecosystem. As a prototype, it has several aspects that require improvement and research. However, its primary function of elicting effective connections between communities and the mangrove ecosystem through sound has been achieved. The next phase of the prototyping will focus on enhancing the multiple sensors and microphone that serve as extensions for the participants. These extensions aim to enhance its sculptural aspect by incorporating symbolical shapes and materials associated with the spiritual dimension of the mangrove that emerge from this collaborative process. The ultimate goal is that acoustic fossil will be able to re-signify the mangrove through sound and a sci-fi narrative as a living entity, interconnected and as a sacred and spiritual space. Acoustic fossil aims to create a harmonious narrative that ethically respects the ecological, cultural and spiritual dimensions of the mangrove. Through sound, it aims to preserve and reverberate the vanishing soundscapes of endangered ecosystems, reminding us of our responsibility to protect and value the natural world and the diverse communities, both human and non-human, coexisting on this planet.
Wow. Santiago, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing. Whew. Great. Okay. We'll keep this train moving. So, Sean, I would love to welcome you to share your presentation, and then we'll get to share all these thoughts that I'm sure are bubbling up, no pun intended, after these amazing presentations.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Tough acts to follow. And let's see here. And I apologize, I did not pre-record. I didn't quite get to that point. But thank you so much. My project that I'm working on for this fellowship is related to an exhibition that I will be presenting for Pacific Standard Time, Art and Science Collide, in October of this year in California, San Diego, California. The project is titled Gut Technics. Gut Technics is really a story about human thinking and looking at the context of our evolution as a species across time, starting with the migration of humans across the planet as sort of like a starting point to where we're at now, where we have tens of thousands of data, remote data sensors in the ocean calculating our climate and weather and other aspects. And what that sort of represents is this movement from land to sea, this sort of understanding of our climate environment as something that's primarily land-based into a future where that is primarily oceanic. And that turn kind of happens, you know, in the 1970s ish, as satellites and radio navigation really takes off. But what I want to add to that as a Pacific Islander American is a aspect of this sort of history that most people think about humans went across land and then went on to sea, is that we've always been oceanic. Humans have always been oceanic. We've evolved our eyes, our senses, our ability to perceive things. We've evolved to have this connection to the ocean, to the sky, to the stars, etc. And so in many ways, this sort of story is a story of not just human migration and climate data, etc., but really a story of humans navigating the planet and the evolution of that, moving from something that is primarily cultural to something that is technologic. A key player in the scheme of things is the remote data sensors that float around our oceans. And when you think about who has access to the high seas, it's usually the military, as well as these technological sensors that are capturing data points. And over the past 20 years or so, these have a life cycle of 4 to 6 years, many of them, and when they expire, oftentimes they just sort of stay in the ocean or they float to the seafloor. And so there's a sort of concept of littering our deep seas with this technology to have data, as well as a sort of growing concern amongst the general population. The Pacific peoples have been concerned about it for a very long time, is deep sea mining. And the ecosystem that is the material ecosystem that is required to create the technology to measure data about what is being destroyed in many ways. And so for my installation, I'm looking at different aspects of this situation that I'll be presenting as a multi-channel video, meaning several projectors presenting separate video content that after the exhibition is done will be put together in a short experimental documentary. And so for the first one, data imagination, utilizing data from these remote sensors. This is a GIS, experimental GIS map derived from these ocean sensors, particularly Argo floats. Right here, it doesn't look like it, but that's the Hawaiian Islands seen from beneath the sea as a 3D model. And the main way I'll be presenting that is through a mock training video. So there are these training videos that the Navy used to educate their the military about radio navigation and satellite navigation. And so I'm in the process of splicing these different training videos together to create as an experimental training video that will also at the same time sort of update the tutorial. The second one is about the material and seafloor. So this here is a point cloud mesh of the Hawaiian Islands. I'm in the Emperor Seamount, focused primarily on the North Pacific. And these data points are derived from soundings and satellite data, et cetera. And so there's this interface of working with data to produce 3D space as a way to help to tell a narrative. But it's not only just about technology. In terms of the second clip that I'm working on is about the seafloor. And I'm focusing primarily on an atlas. Not many people know about this atlas that was commissioned and produced by King Kalakaua in 1887. And it was very, very unique atlas, which basically takes the globe and cuts it into sections along the longitude and latitude. And so when you think about an atlas, most atlases are looking from top down, two-dimensional. But here you have this indigenous king of the Hawaiian Islands in 1887 taking a sectional approach to understanding the planet. And so in 1887, he's talking about how the Earth is not a perfect sphere, and it goes through every latitude and looks at the section, because primarily Kalakaua was interested in mapping the seafloor because what was happening at this time, Hawaii was being connected to the continent by deep sea cables. And so there's this technological acceptance of technological advancement that was happening in the Hawaiian Islands that not many people know about. And this video will be I'm going to the archives. I have a meeting with the archives, and I have the digital digitize them so far. But I'll be assembling the atlas into a 3D model, filming it, and then reading in Hawaiian the transcript of Kalakaua describing his atlas, and that will be probably about a 20-minute video. And that will be projected on another wall. And then the very last component is about the sky and electromagnetic wave, and the sort of transition of when you think about celestial navigation or way back in time, Polynesian navigation, oceanic navigation. It's all about reading waves in the surface of the ocean and how those waves occur at different scales, one being the swell at the transoceanic level, and then one being at surface waves, which are refractions from islands. And so there's this turn that happens where we move from reading waves, physical waves on the ocean and deep sea, to reading electromagnetic waves in the sky, because basically radio navigation, GPS, et cetera, they all work on reading these electromagnetic waves and how they intersect. But what many people don't realize, I'm going to turn this down and make sure it's sped up, is that Hawaii has a very specific role in that history. Anybody who uses GPS is connected to a very particular place on the island of Oahu, which is a valley that I grew up in, where in between the 1940s and 1990s, the valley was used as a radio communication navigation site, transmitting radio waves all the way from Hawaii to Sweden. And so the third component is going to be the sort of immersive video component focused on this particular place and telling the story about how Hawaii has been instrumental in our technological advancement so far. And with that, I'm out of time. I would love to talk more in the chats and our breakout rooms. Mahalo so much.
Mahalo, Sean. Thank you so much for sharing that presentation. Great work. Oh, it's so great. These are like my favorite days, getting to hear what the three of you are up to. Thank you all for your generosity and sharing the work that you've been up to.